Hello, in today's video I want to talk to you about SMART goals. Let's not bother with New Year's resolutions, let's really make a plan that we can work to this year. Hello, my name is Karen Stangram and welcome to Conquer Crochet, the channel for tips, tricks and techniques for conquering your crochet. Everything I talk about in today's video will be linked in the descriptions below. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell and do all those lovely things, and comment below and let me know what your new SMART goals are going to be. So let's get on with the video. So I just mentioned SMART goals, and you may have heard that term bandied around quite a few times. Quite often in business you hear it, certainly in education that I work in. We often set SMART targets and SMART goals for the pupils and for ourselves to achieve within a certain time frame. But what does the SMART actually stand for? Let's have a look. So SMART is an acronym, and the words that we're going to look at are S, being specific. What do I want to actually accomplish? M, measurable. How will I know when it's accomplished? A, achievable. How can the goal be accomplished? R, relevant. Does this seem worthwhile? And T, time-bound. When can I accomplish this goal by? So let's have a look in a little more detail. Now, some of your New Year's resolutions might well be to finish off your whips, to use up all of your yarn, to sort out your yarn stash, to learn particular stitches this year, to make particular projects this year, to sort out your patterns. You could have a variety of different things that you actually want to try and achieve in your crochet this year. So let's have a look at how the SMART goals way of doing things might actually help us to achieve what we want to achieve before December. So let's start off with something like sorting out and finishing off our whips. So the first thing you need to do is to actually find all your whips, find out where they are. So we want to look at our whips and say, right, what do I want to accomplish with these whips by the end of this year? So you could do something called Make 9, which is something that Instagram brought out, where you make a little grid of 9 projects that you want to finish. You could also do this with projects that you want to start. So we're keeping it quite straightforward, quite simple. We're very specific with what we want to do. We want to make these 9 things by the end of the year. Now remember, you have Christmas coming up in sort of October, November, December time, so maybe you want to plan in some Christmas makes as well. Otherwise you end up with even shorter time and you only have 3/4 of the year to do your whips, and then the last quarter of the year you're making Christmas things. So think about it when you're planning out what you want to do. So we need to know that this is specific. We need to know what we're going to make. Is it measurable? How will I know when it's done? So what you might want to do is think, right, I have a hat that I want to finish, and a blanket that I want to finish, and an amigurumi thing I want to finish, and a cowl that I want to take part in. So there's lots of different things that you might want to be doing. So what you need to do is to make sure you don't plan all of the big projects in one go, because you'll get bored and then you'll see the new shiny project and the new shiny yarn that you want to try. So try and have some achievable projects. So it might be to finish that hat. You got that quick gratification there that that hat is finished. Then move on to the blanket. Do the blanket for a specified amount of time, put that to one side, do something else that's quick that you're going to get that instant gratification for, go back to the blanket. So for me, my big project of 2020 was going to be my Sophie's Universe blanket, and I've got so far with it, and then lockdown happened and I couldn't concentrate on it. It's the sort of pattern that needs a lot of concentration for counting stitches. You've got lots of changes of colour, lots of new stitches coming in, or different ways of doing it, or the pattern designer's written something in a slightly different way to the way I know. It's also written in US terms, so for me I'm having to sort of translate as I'm going along. So it became a little bit of a chore and I wasn't enjoying it, so I put it to one side. But this is going to be one of my projects that I really would like to get done, and I need to actually plan the time in to do it when there is nobody in, when nobody's going to be asking me to do things or help with homework or make tea or clean the house or visitors are coming. So plan in your projects when you want to have them done. Okay, so I know that that would be a measurable task that I can plan so many days in when I want to do it. And I know that once I get going on one side, the other 4 sides are repeated, so maybe I just need to focus a short amount of time to work on the one side, and then I could get interrupted whilst I'm working on the other 3 sides because I know what I'm doing in that pattern, if that sort of makes sense too. So measurable, when will it be finished? As we already talked about, making something achievable. Will I be able to actually achieve this in a certain amount of time? And if you give yourself bigger projects and smaller projects, then you should be able to achieve things and get, as we said, that instant gratification as you move along. Relevant. Is it worthwhile? You may have started a project 2, 3, 4, however many years ago, and now you look at it and you think, actually I don't really want one of those. And it's just sitting in a bag because you've started it, all that time and effort and money that's gone into all that yarn, but you really don't want the project. It's okay. You can frog it. You don't have to keep it if you don't like it, if you haven't got a recipient for it. Undo it, find a project you do like, something that's going to excite you, and use that yarn on the new project. No one's going to judge you for it. We do it all the time. You start something, don't like it, change it. And the last one is time bound. Give yourself set time frames for when you're going to finish a project. How long it's going to take you, you can work out. If you've made projects before, you know how long it's going to take you to do a hat or a blanket, depending on the size. So think about it realistically and don't beat yourself up over it. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if you don't set yourself the goal, then it will probably never happen, and we'll be sitting here next new year going, yeah, still got all those whips to finish. So your next project may be to sort out your yarn. Now I did a big project sorting out my yarn. I did it in the summer. I couldn't be bothered. It was a nice day. I don't know why I did it on a nice day. Really is something you might want to do on a horrible wet cold day. So I went through all my stash and I sorted out everything into these little plastic bags. You can use vacuum bags if you want to. These are just the large IKEA sandwich bags. And all I do is put my yarn in, sit on it and do it up. But that meant that I can actually use my lovely storage boxes that I've got here to keep all my different yarns in. And I sorted mine out in size, colour, so all my DK yarns were together, all of my Aran yarns are together, all of my finer yarns are together. Then I sorted them out within colour, so I put all the blues together of the DK, I put all of my blue Arans together, I put all of the blue finer yarns together, all of my cottons together. So I found a way to sort it so that I knew when it came to making something I could go, right, this is the box that has my DK in, I have blue here, do I have enough balls of yarn to do this? Or could I mix and match? So maybe the cardigan is blue, but I might want to have blue and white stripes. Oh, here's my white DK yarn, here's my blue, I've got 4 of this one and 4 of that one, and it'll work. And that's how we can actually start using our stash rather than just stashing our stash. The other thing you might want to do with your stash is when you go through, if you find something you don't like, get rid of it. If you're not going to use it, it's taking up space where you could have beautiful yarns. So if you've got that sort of very stringy yarn, or you've got a yarn that likes to break and you keep catching your hook in it and it's not a pleasure to crochet with, get rid of it. Then you could order some nice pretty yarns. So that's the specific. We want to sort out our yarn stash. Measurable, give yourself a certain amount of time to do it in, because it's very easy to then go, oh, this lovely pretty yarn, oh, that would be nice for this pattern, oh, let's go and start making. Commit to sorting your stash. You will thank yourself for it later on. Is it achievable? It depends on the size of your yarn stash. If you only have a small stash, then it should be quite achievable. You might even want to make a little note as well to go in the front of your box or in the bag so that you know which yarns are in there, so that you can actually see at a glance what you have rather than having to go through all of it and then your bags come undone and you've got to start zipping them up again. And so try and make your life as easy as possible. Do it once, do it right, don't have to do it again. Relevant? Does it seem worthwhile? Yeah, I think so, because it means that you can then, when you do have a project, you can use your time crocheting rather than sorting out and trying to find out where your stash is. So that helps as well. And time bound, give yourself a time limit. Don't let this roll on and roll on. Say, right, I'm going to spend one day or one weekend sorting this out. getting rid of anything I don't want, and then you're good to go. So those of you who've been following me on Instagram or saw my granny square video on chit chat and things to do with granny squares, I set myself a little challenge in August where I wanted to make a granny square a day, and I also wanted to make a granny square blanket, but only using my scrap stash. So those bits of yarn that are this bit too much to throw away, but not quite enough to actually make anything substantial with. So I decided to make the granny square a day, and you can check that out in the video, which I will link in the descriptions below. You can see the different squares that I made, and also this blanket which I made. So this, this was my granny blanket, and I did this with all my scrap yarns. But what I did do, and you can see on the darker colours here, is that I actually took a white thread through with the actual coloured thread. All of these were double knit yarns. So I took a white thread through, and I did an edging, sorry, not white thread, white yarn through, and I did an edging in white yarn as well, just to marry all those colours up together. And it's a sort of ugly, scrappy blanket, but I like it, and I have to say, because it is double thread, it is a very warm blanket, even though granny blankets traditionally have these holes in, so they can get a little bit chillier, but actually it's quite a nice cosy blanket to snuggle up to. So how does that relate to your SMART targets? Well, specific, what do I want to accomplish? I want to get rid of my yarn stash. Measurable, how will I know when it's done? Your stash will have disappeared. Achievable, how am I going to make this happen? Will you commit to it? It could be one of your make 9 that you actually plan in that you're going to do this stash blanket, and then just get crocheting. If you pick something like I did with the granny square, or some repetitive stitch that you're just going to do over and over, you'll find that it's more what I call a mindful blanket, where you don't have to actually think. Unlike the Sophie's Universe, which is gorgeous, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of thought, whereas this one, the colours sort of just say it all, and you let the colours and the stitch speak for itself. You don't worry about the actual pattern and the design, you're just focusing on the stitch, and then you can just relax and get on with making your blanket. Something then that you can take with you when you're travelling as well. If you're going to see family, then it's nice to be able to sit in the car and just do something that's mindful, rather than sitting there getting upset because there's a traffic jam going on. I could be doing something more useful than sitting in a car. Achievable, well, you can make it achievable because you're setting this goal. It is achievable. This one I managed to do in just over a month, I think it was, as well as doing all the granny squares a day as well. So it is an achievable thing to do. Relevant, is it worthwhile? Well, I have a lovely blanket now that I can use in the garden because it's a scrappy blanket. I don't really mind if it gets taken into the garden. I don't mind if it goes in the back of the car. I'm quite happy, so I think it is a relevant one. Whereas I probably wouldn't want my Sophie's Universe blanket to go anywhere other than where it goes, and it's going to stay on a bed or in the cupboard or draped over the sofa. No, you can't use it, use one of the other blankets. And time bound, set yourself the challenge. Can I do this in a month? Yes, you can. It's easily done. You just need to decide what you're going to do and then crack on with it. So one of your goals might be to learn new stitches. And here you need to set yourself the achievable goal of being able to actually do those stitches. So maybe learn a new stitch a month. Now what I find is I find a new stitch and then think, oh, I'm going to make a whole blanket on it. And then 2 months later, I'm still doing the blanket and I haven't done any new stitches. So what you might want to do is decide, right, I'm only going to make a sample of each of these, or I'm going to just make a cushion cover. Something that is smaller and achievable. It's measurable because that's the size it's going to be, and time bound because you know it's not going to take you months and months to actually make it. Obviously, if you want to make a blanket using the stitch that you've learnt because you love it so much, then there's no one stopping you doing that. But I'm just trying to help you. If your plan is to learn new stitches every month, then you want to have something that you can say, I made that. And it could be you make a little patchwork blanket, so you make a certain size, different stitches, you do one a month, and you can sew them all up together at the end, and you have a lovely patchwork blanket of the different stitches. Now I have a Stittionary playlist on my channel which I'm adding to all the time. There's a left-handed and a right-handed version, so if you want to learn some new stitches, I'll pop the link in the descriptions below and you can have a look there and see if there are any stitches that you don't know that you really fancy trying to learn. Now, do you get caught up with all the lovely shiny patterns and you're in the middle of a project that last month was the pattern, you had to make it? I remember this year wall hangings and rainbows were all the thing and we all had to make those, and then the pocket shawls, so the little shawl with the little pockets in, everyone was making those. So do you see the latest new shiny thing and then go, I'm going to make that, I'm going to make that, and then you've saved these patterns or you've screenshotted something on your phone because you really like it, and then haven't really got anywhere to save it to. They get lost, you forget about it, and if you've forgotten about it, maybe it wasn't that important to make anyway. But if you would like to, we have the Conquer Crochet project folder which could help you out. So the idea is, in here you will get downloadable prints of, these are the UK crochet terms and the US crochet terms. So if you are in the US, and all my videos I do in UK terminology, so this sheet alone would help you with the projects that I do on YouTube. Hook size conversions, which are always useful to know because sometimes patterns are written with a different hook size and you're like, oh, what's that? I don't know. And then you have to start Googling things. You can keep these on your phone and then it would be there ready for you to use. Yarn weight conversions, again, that's another thing that I have a problem with, like what is worsted weight? I don't work in worsted weight, I work in DK and Aran, so sometimes if I see an American pattern I'm going, lightweight, heavy, don't know, what's lace, what's sporting weight? There are so many different ones. So we have those on there as well. Washing instructions, really useful for showing if you're making a garment for somebody and you want to put a little tag on so they know how to look after the garment you've made for them. Also it's a handy one to put up in your laundry so you can go, oh, how do I wash this? Ah yes, thank you very much, Conquer Crochet. A little design here if you're wanting to make your own granny square designs and you want to make a blanket using different granny squares of the same colour and you make a design using those, that's in there as well, as is the pixel blanket. If you're wanting to do corner to corner crochet, the pixel blanket design sheet is in there as well. And hexagonals, so if you're doing granny hexagons you could make your design on there. Really nice on hexagons if you're doing bees. Then I have a crochet slang checklist which is also really useful. Lots of terms, like I mentioned the term frogging, and if you don't know what frogging is unpicking. I mentioned whips earlier. Whips are work in progress, so useful to have the slang, especially if you're newer to crochet or you're not used to the crochet slang that people use on Facebook and Instagram. So that's a useful one to have. And then I have my projects that I've made. So this was a project I made of a pink beard, and there's a lovely photograph of me wearing the pink beard. A little strange, I know. It was a request from school. I think they were doing Pirates of the Caribbean, I think it was, and there was a character called Redbeard, but he had to have a pink beard. So I made it on here. I've got my little, this is the yarn that I use, and there's a little sample of the yarn in there as well. And then behind that I have the printout of the pattern. So I know I can come back and say, right, that's the pattern I want to make, and it's all there together. I know who I've made it for. So on here it has the recipient, so you know, oh, I made it for that person, I won't make that again. So that's really useful in there. And then this other patterns that I haven't made yet, I'm just storing at the back so I can keep those all nice and safe. So that's one way you can sort out your patterns. Just get yourself a ring binder. The link for this is in the descriptions below. It's bit.ly/Conquer Crochet, but that's in the description below. So that's one way, in a ring binder. Another way you might want to sort out your patterns is to save them all online. So you could have them either stored in a little folder in the cloud, or it could be on your desktop or on your tablet if you wanted to. And just save, as you find things, save them into that folder. If you have a Ravelry account, and Ravelry is an online Crochet a Knitter's Delight really, where you can get some free patterns and some are paid for, and you can save those, but you can only save the Ravelry patterns in there, I believe. So that's another way of doing it. The way I store a lot of my patterns, because when I get the magazines through and I find something, I've got so many patterns now, it just got ridiculous. I was flicking through magazines trying to find things and couldn't remember, especially if they haven't got the picture on the front cover. So I decided to cut out all of my patterns, and they are now stored in the drawer. So let's go over to the drawer and have a look. So I have this filing cabinet drawer which I have all my patterns in Polly Pockets, and then each of the sections is labelled. I'll put a link in the descriptions to my labeler below, just so I know that if I want to make a toy, or I want to make a scarf, or I want to make a flower or Christmas things, they're all sorted out into the particular sections. So if I just pull out my Easter file here, I've got a lovely little chick basket there that you can keep some little eggs in, and there's also a whole amigurumi pattern book there from one of the crochet magazines, something I downloaded from the internet. And then I believe the next one is the Christmas wreath, the Easter wreath that you could make for your Easter door. And then that's all my Easter patterns. I can slot that back in, and I actually have them in order of the year as well. But as with all of these things, you need to keep it going. Once you've set up the system, you need to keep using the system. Don't have a stack of magazines next to you when that's your system. If your system is to have a stack of magazines, have the stack, don't have the drawer. Okay, so stick to the system that you create, and that way it will always work for you. You don't have to keep doing the whole process every year of your spring cleaning or your New Year's resolutions. So that's it for making manageable New Year's resolutions or setting goals for your crochet. So we want to have smart targets. We need to be specific, need to be measurable, it needs to be achievable, it needs to be relevant and something that we actually want to do, and it needs to be time bound. You might want to keep this as a little note in a diary, or you might just want to write it in your notebook. You might want to write it in your Conquer Crochet project folder. For your free Smart Goals for Crochet downloadable PDF, please click the link to my blog in the descriptions below. So those are my suggestions for moving your crochet journey along and planning out your crochet year. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel to keep going and let other crocheters find us so that we can build up the Conquer Crochet community. Don't forget also, if you haven't done so, please subscribe. It really does help, and hit the bell, smash the bell, do whatever it is you need to do to the bell, which will give you notifications of when a new video goes live. Everything I've talked about today will be linked in the descriptions below, and there are 2 other videos on screen which will help you on your crochet journey. Thank you so much for joining me today. Happy New Year and happy hooking!